And good evening, everyone. Welcome, one and all, to the final episode of 2024. Welcome to episode 132 of New York Red Bull Discussion Group, the podcast. Welcome, of course, to the season. And, of course, I'm Gary Redman at your service for the final time in 2024 because this is our season finale. After this, we cool our jets until February. Your hosts, Carlos Cano, Lanre Badmas, and of course, Mark Coates will be with you all very shortly. So, the last time we took a break, like, was a 2 week break for our second part, of course, of our postseason postscript. A lot of things took place, and I mean a lot of things took place. Okay, we have a lot to discuss since the last time you heard us because a lot of stuff happened, right? We're going to discuss the release of the 2025 Major League Soccer schedule. We're also going to talk, we're also going to basically discuss how the Red Bulls literally didn't waste any time moving players on and off the roster. We're going to get some detailed analysis from our special guests, of course, which is not only Daniel Urbane and, of course, Anthony Merced. They'll stop by and drop on show. And when it's all over, when it's all said and done, we say a tearful goodbye to one of the original members of the Gentlemen, Carlos Cano, the one and only. He's going to be signing off with us and working behind the scenes. And of course, naturally, if you happen to miss our live show, which is happening right now, okay, remember, you can always catch the recording on our YouTube channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe, goals.tv and spotify.com, which has been our home from the very beginning. Don't forget that all of our episodes are going to be uploaded on the very next day. And of course, as always, even after we sign off tonight, let us know how we are doing. This is your show. Okay, we welcome any feedback, good or bad. So please shoot us an email. Of course, so we have an email address. RBDGthepodcast at gmail.com. That is RBDGthepodcast, one word, at gmail.com. So, anybody's head spinning yet? I mean, well. Around this time, we were always complaining how the team is basically not signing people, how they're letting big names go by the wayside if not being signed by our rivals. Not this time. They didn't wait at all. Shortly after the final whistle blew on December 7th, which is now becoming to be a day of infamy for us, we got to the MLS Cup final, didn't win it for the second time in a row. And yet, the team didn't sit still and made some moves, did they? We're going to talk about that right now as I bring in, of course, our guests. And not even our guests. These are the stars of the show, ladies and gentlemen. Carlos Cano, Mark Coates, and Lanre Badmus. Gentlemen, I know we've been in a while for about a couple of weeks, but let me just ask you, when news started pumping out, right, of player versus player and player coming in, leaving out, the first thing you thought was, wait a minute, this isn't how the Red Bulls do, right? They just don't do anything until even after kickoff, and yet, Lon Ray, I'll start with you first. They didn't wait, did they? I mean, we
No.
were all just as we were all shocked that our boy, you know, Andres Reyes got moved off. Then all of a sudden, other names started coming in. I mean, we're still trying to figure out what the hell participated him getting moved off so damn quickly. I mean, first he called out sick on one of the biggest games of the season,
The
and
biggest
then he
game.
gets the biggest game of the season, and
The
then
biggest game of his career.
he's exit stage left, okay, to
Immediately
San
after. That
Diego.
ruthless. That was so ruthless. I don't know if they had something in the works beforehand, before the final, but the timing of it is just so ruthless. This is a dog eat dog world, and I know it's MLS, but I mean, even in MLS, it's a dog eat dog. It's a dog eat dog league, man.
Mark, I
Honestly,
mean,
with all the moves that we're
are
making,
you thinking like I'm thinking? Like this guy just got himself fired. I
I mean,
mean,
They,
that's
with
what it looked
he
like
gets
to
to leave.
me.
yeah,
He gets to leave
well,
a crappy
without
Western team
re,
like San
I
Diego.
mean, I could say something without revealing the source of which I found out. It had to do with the team doctor not clearing him to go on the field after seeing him after warmups.
Oh,
So that was what happened. So whatever it was that was causing his illness, whatever it might have been, it was actually the team doctor that made that decision. It wasn't him. So before we all go, pitchforks and everything else,
Pitchforks and
saying,
torches, the
yeah,
usual
saying,
Metro way.
how come you didn't play? How come you screwed up our final? It wasn't his decision. As far as the decision to move him, I questioned why we were on the West Coast, and this announcement came. Like, I felt like, did the plane actually land before he knew he was fired? I mean, I don't know. And I guess we can speculate all we want. It can be a he said, she said kind of thing. At the end of the day, he's not with us anymore.
Yeah.
So, we've prided ourselves on the whole next man up. So, next man up. We'll see. We'll get to the next man is later on in the show.
Yeah.
But listen, we don't know. You don't know what would have happened. Could it have been the same thing? Could he have turned back into Red Card Reyes? We don't know. I mean, there's no way to know. I think the guy was phenomenal in the playoffs. I mean, we know he's had an up and down career with us, but you can't fault a single thing he did in the playoffs for us. You just can't. So I will not throw him under the bus.
No, see, Carlos, that's the thing that kind of has me stupefied, if that's a word, of course. The stupefaction of all things. It's not like he did anything horrible during the playoffs. I would say that he made not one but two key blocks versus the NYCFC game out and over, in Flushing. Those blocks don't happen; they score, right? So so at least to me. And then of course he was the one that headed in the one and only goal in Orlando that punched the ticket to Carson. So we always wonder, Carlos, if we were going to see the bad Andres or the good Andres. Luckily, on the run to Carson, we've been seeing nothing but the good, Andres. So, despite that, did you find this thing shocking at least?
I suppose so, right? Again, everything else is speculation with regards to, the game itself and the timing and whatnot. It certainly wasn't ideal, right? I mean, again, hindsight's 2020, so you can argue and say that if Reyes had played, we could have won, we should have won, we would have won. Again, we'll never know at this point. It is what it is. I'm just, I'm excited to see that they've been so active thus far, right after the end of the season. And granted, right, it's been a change of pace because we're so used to having a longer off season because we're usually one and done or two and done. This year we make it all the way to the finals, so the turnaround, from the end of the season, right, for us to making all these moves. And that's what I think probably credited to everything happening so quickly, right? Yeah. But, again, and I said this in the group, this is Sandro's first full off season, with his hands truly 100% immersed in this team. So he'll have more of an influence than he did going into last season. So, we'll wait and see, right? But, at the end of the day, it is what it is, right? And we've spoken about this during every off season. It's a business, and Andres saw greener pastures in San Diego. So,
oh yeah, he's gonna love
have
that
fun,
weather.
have at it, my friend. I mean,
Yep.
it was great to have you, but here we are.
You want to talk about greener pastures? How about that logo? How plain those jerseys are? Why didn't they just bring up the San Diego Loyal? Why are they making a whole new club?
Okay, I got a better
That looks
question.
so freaking
Landon Donovan would agree with you.
Landon Donovan is disgusting. He's free rolling in his grave. Thank God he's still with us. that man is that man's grave ain't even been set yet. He's already going to start rolling it when he dies at like 80 or something. That's disgusting. Naming rights. I don't care about naming rights. I don't care about that. That is a disgrace.
Yeah, rules. Who needs rules?
That is a disgrace.
Okay. You said you were ready for some. You were ready for
It's a
some hot takes. You weren't
disgrace.
kidding. Speaking of hot takes, I'm going to continue on with you, Lon Ray. The
Yes.
2025 schedule have broken out, and just to remind everyone, of course, there are 4 Wednesday night games. 2 of them at home. 2 Sunday night games in August. I hate Sunday night games. I really, really do. Everything else is on Saturday. Now, of course, this is the first year of Apple TV doing games of the week to showcase the league. Game times naturally will go vary, but here's some interesting starting times. On March 15th versus Orlando, 2:30 in the afternoon. That was the one that caught my eye. Okay, it was like, wait a minute, why are we playing in March at 2:30 in the afternoon? Then, of course, you got March 29th, 2:30 p.m. up in New England. That's the start. Of course, then you have 4:30 p.m. at Orlando and 4:30 versus Montreal, which I will be. Then, of course, at the Smurfs, 4:30 p.m. Aich, okay. Sunday versus Real Salt Lake will take place at 6 p.m. And then Sunday versus Charlotte, 7 p.m. Everything else is on 7:30, which is the usual time. 2 games out in West Portland start at 10:30 at night. So we're going to have a late night with either Carlos and, of course, Bradley on, on the game thread. So hope you get some rest on that time. However, the hardest month of all, this is all coming from our good friend Nicholas. He's basically saying away with 7 games in May. Away to Messi. Oh boy, on May 3rd. May 10th, at home versus the Galaxy. May 14th,
Hey.
Wednesday, away at Nashville. May 17th. Oh, it gets better, Lon Ray. May 17th, you're going to be on the road versus Smurf. You're going to be away on the 24th to DC United. We will be there. On the 28th, you're going to be home to Charlotte. And finally, to wrap things crazy off, our good friends and our frenemies, if that's what you want to call it, Atlanta as at home on the 31st. Now, you've scanned, okay, the schedule. What do you like about that schedule? What do you hate about it?
What I hate, I'm going to start with what I hate about it. St. Louis City FC, or SC, excuse me. It's in their 3rd season in this league. We still have not played them once. We still got to wait till MLS Cup to play them. What is the point of having them in this league if they're not going to play everyone at least once in their first 3 years, bro?
Well,
Why?
That I'm going to agree with you. I was under the impression, fellas, that at least it was going to be a conference-heavy schedule. Everybody in the East play everybody twice, right? And you play everybody in the Western Conference maybe once, and at a home and like a year, year home and home. At least that was the only. But then I realized after doing some math, there wasn't enough games to fit 35 games. So there you go, like this. So that's why it couldn't happen.
Well, you want to know my hot take about the schedule?
Go ahead.
We should play every team at least once. Other leagues have less teams with more games. There's no reason we can't play at least every team at least once, whether home or away. Western Conference, you should play every team at once,
Okay,
and then
Carlos,
play
Mark, you
every
agree?
Eastern Conference team twice.
I mean,
Again,
not,
championship
yeah,
has
and I
more
don't know that
has more
I
games.
don't know that the problem with the scheduling with, as we call it, the cash grab tournament, just sort of screws everything up.
Then get rid of it.
But
It
that's
benefits
There's no
nobody.
guarantee.
oh
Hold
no,
on. There's no
that's where you're
guarantee
wrong.
Why?
there's no
Benefits
guarantee they're
MLS.
going to be playing in
Rocket,
that
man.
tournament this year, Lon Ray. I didn't hear
Right,
anything official from the team. As
right.
far as I'm concerned, if they all go straight up U.S. Open Cup, I'm happy. Only
Please,
18
please,
teams.
Right.
Only
inshallah,
18
please.
teams are going to be playing in the Leagues
But
Cup,
that's it. But
and
that's the
I didn't
problem.
see
You look
right,
at
and I
you
didn't
look at the
see and I
congestion.
didn't see the Red Bulls listed. Take that if you will. Now,
Well,
while he goes right now,
according to the league site, they haven't announced any. Nothing's been
right, nothing's been announced.
solidified about
Right.
Lon Ray's not
leagues.
going to punch a wall and come
But
back.
I mean, look, it is what it is. Let's
Man.
be honest. There's tons of things about this league that we know don't make sense. Like I
Burger
said in the
League.
group earlier this week, my thing is don't insult my intelligence, right? So
Thank you.
don't have Miami put out a retro kit when they've been a team for 5 minutes, relatively speaking.
2 years.
And you're gonna please, again, like I said in the group,
Yeah.
please just call it the we have Messi, so we're gonna unleash multiple kits kit. Like, it's some of the things that this league does is just ridiculous. But we already knew that. Look, at the end of the day, right? It is what it is. I don't disagree with Lanre. Like, I don't understand why it is that there's a team that has been in the league now 3 years. We have yet to play them in any capacity.
Complete
Um,
bullshit. Complete.
Again, I don't know, but
Really
I don't get paid to make those decisions or not. So
Well, then maybe you do a better job than the people who are paid to make those decisions, because this is Burger League Kings. This is Burger League Central right now, yo.
No, it's
Tell
Messi
me why
League.
LAFC gets a retro kit. Tell me why Inter Miami gets a retro kit. That it's Burger League. I just had a delicious burger at the Devils game. That's
Actually, had
Burger
burgers
League Kings,
At,
man.
Okay, they had burgers. They had burgers at
well,
Prudential
listen,
Center.
Had
think
delicious burgers.
now with with
Well, you know
Sports
me, Lama.
Nick,
Illustrated Stadium, we should get
Nick.
new
It's not about that, Nick. It's not
catering.
about that. They are in this league. It's their third year. We should be
That's
fucking
it.
playing them.
Hey!
What is
Watch the
this?
Make sure
The
that's the
last
F.
episode of the season is going to get the parental sticker.
Yeah.
Good.
Make
It
sure that's the
should.
last.
You shouldn't be afraid. All gloves off. This is the last one of the season, right?
All right,
All
Carlos,
gloves off.
this is for you. We talked about actually all the stuff that's been happening basically, in the last week. Not even that. Starting on the 9th, okay, we received the players. The Red Bulls exercised their option on goalkeeper Carlos Coronel. Now, the club has declined options on the following guys: Aiden O'Connor, Corey Burke. Thank you for your service. There's the door. Okay. AJ Marcucci is returning on a loan from IF Gistan, and defender Juan Jose Miner continues to be alone with Estrella de Matadora. So he's out there, and he'll be trying to bring him in one day. New
He's
York
not
Red
it.
Bulls 2-4 Tanner Rossborough is going to occupy a homegrown spot as of January 1st of 2025. More on that, of course, when our friend Daniel Rebane joins us, and Mark and you are going to have a nice discussion about that. The goalkeeper Ryan Mira, we thought he was going to retire. Nope, 2 more years. So he's got a new MLS contract. Red
Easy
Bulls
money.
signed, of course, the Red Bulls 2 defender Omar Valencia to an MLS contract. He signs a 3-year deal through 2027 with an option to 2028. Now, on the 9th, okay, now they signed Staten Island native Adri Mehmeti to an MLS contract as a homegrown, and he becomes the third youngest homegrown signing in franchise history at 15 years. Let me ask you guys a question. Anybody remember what you did at age 15?
Not anywhere close to being an MLS homegrown for my beloved
No.
New York Red
I
Bulls.
was
That's
playing
for
high school
sure.
ball.
I mean,
Yeah, I was playing intercounty.
I was in high
Intercounty
school.
soccer.
I was in high school trying to remember how to make friends at that age. 15 years, 249 days old. Then on the 11th, Red Bull Arena becomes Red Bull Arena no more. Okay. Sports Illustrated. Now, our new home is going to be known as Sports Illustrated Stadium. So we've gone from RBA to the CIS? Or is it
Never
the
calling it
PSI?
that in my life.
Never.
Ever.
It will always
Well,
be
you
RBA.
know what I
refuse.
you know what I said, right? I said I'm still calling it Red Bull. I'm still calling it Red Bull Arena. The
Yeah.
idea of calling a brand name, right? We switched brand names, right? I mean, that's basically how it works, right? So we went from one brand name to another, okay? This, this is a 13-year partnership. They're also going to unveil Sports Illustrated Stadium. The tickets, of course, will be taking over, the official ticketing partner for all events at Sports Illustrated Stadium beginning in 2026. Okay. not next season, season thereafter. Okay, this includes Red Bulls and New York, New Jersey, Gotham FC home matches, as well as international soccer games, youth events, concerts, watch parties, and other events held at the stadium. Look, if there's one good thing out of all this, no more ticket bastard. the, you know the the
Next
ticket, the ticket.
2026, not this coming year.
Correct, right. So we don't have to deal with those schmucks anymore. People hate
Oh,
Ticketmaster. I mean, they hate
schmuck.
them like they hate cancer. That's basically it. However, I'm a little. I'll explain in about a minute before we bring in Daniel. I have mixed feelings about this, gentlemen. I really do. I have really mixed feelings about this. Number one, I mean, I remember Sports Illustrated during the Time Warner days, and they were a reputable brand. They were a reputable media source, especially when it came to especially when it came to soccer. Okay, the late soccer writer, he passed away, of course, during the recent World Cup. They fired him because he
Grand
wouldn't take.
Wall.
Yeah, Grant Wall. He wouldn't. They fired him. Okay, because he wouldn't take a pay cut. So they greased him. Okay, I just simply tore up. I didn't have a subscription anymore. I just figured that okay, if you're going to be doing that to some of the more better writers out there, because Sports Illustrated, other than of course than the bikini-clad honeys that we saw every year, I mean they were a good a sports magazine. Okay, if your squad and your fan base wound up on that magazine, you know you're doing something right. But now it just ranks high, and it's nothing more than a brand. So a firm that specializes in cutting people out left and right bought the brand, killed everybody, but bought the brand, and now going to rename it now as a ticketing service. Go figure. This is how Wall Street works. For more importantly, as Carlos always says, what's that say? What's that saying? Money talks, right, Carlos? So here we go. It's a big check. Red Bulls signed a big check for this. They said, okay, fine. I mean, hey, but privately, if you can just get rid of Ticketmaster as your ticketing, hey, that's a win. Okay,
That's a
I
W.
mean
That's
that's
a
the
big W.
only win you're gonna get. Okay, the next day, Red Bulls trade Colombian international Andres Reyes to San Diego FC. Now, the Red Bulls received about $600,000 in GAM for 2025, $200,000 in GAM for 2026,
Yeah,
and
fake
basically
money.
retain a percentage of all sell-on rights. That's not a bad deal, okay? Then the next day after that, we're talking about the 12th. I'm doing everything in chronological order because as these events happen, that was basically keeping note about this. And on the 18th, the Red Bull signed Cameroon international Eric Maxim Chupo Motin, which is practically the worst secret, right, Mark? The worst secret that you probably knew, because we knew he was coming. People already said he had signed the deal and then made it official on the 18th. Forget the words Eric Maxim Motin, just call him Chupo. That's what he
Chupo, yeah.
prefers. That's what he prefers
Mhm.
in people naming it. And I'm sure that name is going to wind up in the back of the jersey. They signed him to a designated MLS contract, designated player. He's won 3 Bundesliga titles with Bayern Munich. Okay, this isn't some scrub. Okay, he's on championship teams. Okay, most of them are Bayern Munich. He's had 2 League One championships with Paris Saint
Even
Germain in his career. So this dude, okay, knows how to win. Let me ask you guys real quick about this particular signing. You like or you don't like? First of all, we got a number 9. Finally, okay? Not only a number 9, we got a number 9 who's seasoned and he won stuff. So let me put it out there to you guys, especially everyone out there who signed in tonight. You like this signing, Carlos? Or it's meh?
I think it's a little bit. It's better than the norm, right?
Mm-hmm.
In some ways, um, I feel like again, right, depending on who you are in terms of being a part of the fan base. I think if you're probably a more casual fan, you're probably like who. If
Right.
you're a little bit more of a diehard just in general in terms of the game, you probably have a little bit more awareness of them. But look, again, they're busy. They're staying active. I
And they
think
ain't,
this.
from what I'm hearing, they ain't done.
Right.
They're not
And I
done.
think, again, I think this probably is more on par with, maybe not on par, right? But just, along the same levels of, again, when we got Forsberg last season, right? Now another big European, a bigger European star, right? Again, all relative. At the end of the day, lace them up and put the ball in the back of the net.
That's all
Yeah,
I ask. So, Mark,
100%.
Mark Lonray, you feel the same?
Well,
Yes.
yeah, I think it's interesting that before the team's announcement, he actually had put out a video on Instagram
Right.
saying that he was coming. And one of the things I found very interesting about his comment was he wants to be here. Forsberg said the same thing at the beginning of this year when he signed his contract was coming over. He wants to be here and he wants to win. And that's
Right.
one of the things that a lot of the younger guys talked about in interviews over the course of the week leading up to the cup game was what a difference it is having Forsberg in the locker room. And we've talked about it, God knows, to no end, that there just was no veteran leadership on this team.
Right.
Now we get a guy coming in, he's got 5 titles to his name. People
Been
know he
there,
knows how
done
to
that.
score. And even in his worst season, he put the ball in the back of the net 13 times. Okay. Now, you look at our roster of milk cartons and tell me when any of them have gotten into double digits. I mean, the only one who came close was Barlow, and that was what, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. I mean, that's horrible. That's just, it's just, and this is part of why I love what I'm seeing. Carlos touched on it earlier because we had such a late run into the season, and it ended so late for us. We're not used to seeing this team take action so quickly. We're used to like the end of January, we start hearing rumors. Maybe by mid-February, we start possibly hearing about signings. This is just unprecedented for us. I can't remember the last time we were this active so quickly after the end of the season. Listen, I hope this guy puts in at least 10. I'm hoping that we're bringing in someone who's going to help our younger guys develop because we're going to get to it when we talk about the second team. We have got some guys who can score at the lower level. The question is, like, BWP got a lot from Henry when he was here. Can this guy give our younger players the opportunity to blossom?
Well, this is something that I brought up before we move on. Something I brought up. I know a lot of people saying, who's this guy? I never heard about this guy. As someone who followed the Bundesliga, with myself and Anthony Mercedes is going to come in a little later. This dude was second fiddle to guys like, oh boy,
With
so
Lewandowski.
Lewandowski and all those guys. Okay, and he was still getting double digit. So imagine that. So imagine a front line, if you will, of Chupo. Then you got Lewis. Then you got Van Zier, if he's still around. And right behind all three of them, you got Emil Forsberg right there in center field with those deadly passes saying, pick my poison. Okay, I got this guy, this guy. And if any of those dudes are open, it's Gold City, baby. We haven't had that type of firepower, remember, since we had Sasha Kleiston dishing out passes over the BWP and everybody else. People were happy, okay, happy when you had dudes, when you had someone like that. So, and this is something that Kleiston also brought up. He said, we need a 9. That's why you having problems scoring. You need a 9. You need someone who's going to make defenses think. Okay, if I'm going to double team you, I'm leaving somebody open. Okay? You're trying to tell me you're going to leave somebody open, someone as dangerous as Lewis Morgan rolling around in the box? You're going to leave somebody like Van Zier rolling around in the box? Ask City how they felt when they left him rolling around the box all by himself out in Queens. I mean, they just basically ignored him. until he scored the second goal. Then he's like, "Oh, then we got to body him." Oh, well, okay, okay. Well, it's a little too late now. I mean, he scored the clinching goal out in Queens, but you left him alone. You said, "Nah, he ain't gonna score. He ain't gonna do nothing." We shut him down last time at Red Bull Arena. Well, now made a mistake, didn't you? Now we got somebody that can able to split and stretch the defense. He may not be pacey, but he's, from people we talk to, he still bangs balls back in the net. So he don't care. So this is going to be fun this year. Okay, next season it's going to be a lot of fun. Let me wrap this up. Okay, of course, naturally with Andres Reyes going bye bye to San Diego, to sunny San Diego, we needed a central defender. And oh my lord, did they pick up somebody with experience? Ladies and gentlemen, say hello to Alexander Hack. Okay, he brings over 133 games of experience in the Bundesliga, mainly with FSV Mainz '05 to the Red Bulls. Okay, he used to play with our current manager back in the day, back in the day when he was coaching that team. So at least he knows the guy. Okay, so now we have an experienced center back working with Nealis. I don't know about you, but let me ask you this, Carlos. Does that elevate that defense to so-so to elite now with with all that experience back there? Oh, by
I
the
mean,
way,
one would hope.
by the way, he's especially lethal during set pieces. So it's a
Yeah,
basic 1-for-1.
and it seems like it, right? On paper, it would seem like it. I think what I liked about it is the fact that this is somebody who is very familiar with Sandro's way of playing, right? Because he has played for him before.
Right.
And again, I think the important thing that I took away from that is again Sandro being now fully immersed, right? Going into his first full off season with the team and really now starting to put a lot more of his touch onto this team,
Input.
saying, "Yeah, let me bring in,
Some of
this is
these
a guy
guys I need.
who I trust," right? And I think that's also important, right? The fact that this is somebody who has played for him in the past and he is essentially saying, I trust you. Like let's do this, right? So again, I mean, given what we lost, right? It seems like we have found the replacement. Hopefully, he's better than Reyes is. I think there's obviously the potential for that, but at the end of the day, right? Like everything is all speculation, and we can sort of see, right, based on what they've done statistically in the past. But lace them up. Let's see what happens.
So basically, you like what you see, but we'll see what happens when they when they hit the pitch,
Yeah,
and things like that.
I'm in the one who's like, I believe in this guy's ability. I believe that he could be better than Reyes. But I mean, the fact that he's coming from the Saudi second division, yes, he helped his club get promoted. But the fact that he was in the Saudi second division to begin with is such a steep drop off from the Bundesliga. How is he going to like bounce back up to MLS level?
Oh,
Because
he'll bounce.
honestly, it's just insult to even say that the Saudi Premier League is on MLS's level, thoughtless of its second division. I didn't even know they had a second division. They're so crap.
Yeah, well,
But
here's the
I
thing.
mean,
When
I
you
just hope
haven't,
he still
you
has
know,
like the ability to hang here.
you know what they say, Lonray, right? If you have an elite player playing in such an elite league, and when you notice that the talent has risen, and you go, oh, okay, oh, we gonna ball, and something inside you just snaps and goes, okay, I'm in a better league this time. I better be on my game. And so I'm sure that after he and Sandro have a nice few conversations, I don't think we're going to be too worried about that drop off, to be honest with you, Lonray. I really don't.
Okay, good.
I really don't think we're
I
going to
hope
worry about that
I
drop.
hope so.
Because I'm looking at his stats and the body of work this guy did, he anchored defenses. I mean, and when you're working with someone who's up and coming, you got two vets in a the only areas that I'm a little worried about is probably left back, maybe right back. Hopefully, they can able to solve that issue before we get to Coachella. Finally, of course, Red Bulls acquires 2 international roster spots with a trade with Seattle Sounders FC. Red Bulls acquired two
Thanks,
international
Kai.
spots, for 300,000 K of GAM in 2025 and 50K of GAM in 2026. And finally, we had to say goodbye to Elias Manuel. He went off to Real Salt Lake. Hope he's brought a very heavy coat, but thank you very much for your service, sir. We'll never forget how you pasted um, Charlotte in the
200
playing game the year
times.
before. I mean,
Only hat trick ever in the playoffs for our
well,
franchise.
but yeah, I mean,
Unbelievable.
Charlotte, they're sick of him. They're like, oh, him again? Right. But,
They probably
you know,
rejoiced when they heard that news.
they're
But
just
they
like,
play
oh,
him again this
good
season, though.
season. So he'll be back.
Yeah,
He'll
You
be
play
back
him
to,
that's only
again.
once. Not twice. They only have to play him once.
He'll be back to pestering him again. The Red Bulls, of course, it wasn't exactly free. 550K of GAM in 2025, 150 K in GAM in 2026, and retain a percentage of sell-on rights. Now, something tells me that this wasn't exactly all Schneider doing all this. You had somebody in the back, you had somebody in the background who knows the league also helping out, and that's how we were able to get all this TAM and this game and all these roster moves. That they were able to get it done before Christmas, which has got everybody's head spinning and scratching their heads like guys like us, like, okay, you really got this thing done before Christmas, and yet you're not finished, and that's where Anthony Merced comes in and we're able to iron that part out, and of course explain how all of this got done behind the scenes. But before that, Daniel Rebane is sitting in there in the virtual green room. He's gonna join. He's gonna join us. I'm gonna disappear. Lonray, Mark, Carlos, you're gonna talk to him about the thing that's been doing over in New York Red Bull 2, and where does he feel that some of these players have moved up, and how much of an impact they're going to have in 2025. And we're going to discuss that in the next 30 seconds. Stick around, folks. We have much more to talk about and much more to go. We'll be back in 30 seconds. Okay, New York Red Bull 2. Remember them? They were in MLS Next Pro. And although they had pretty much had a forgettable season, well, they
See,
didn't make the
I got it.
playoffs and they practically lost more games than they won. Other
Which
than myself, of course, Daniel Rebane has been there keeping an eye on the kids as they were. And he's going to talk to him and Mark about how well they did during the season. And those players that got called up, you might want to according to you, Daniel, folks may want to just when they want circle their names on them because you feel just like I do. They're basically going to really make an impact. I'm going to step out and let you and Mark have a conversation. Go ahead.
What's up, Daniel?
How you doing, Mark?
I'm doing good, man. I know this year was kind of a different year for Red Bull 2. Obviously, like we discussed earlier, not the defensive juggernaut that they had been. I know AJ enjoyed getting out of town. So I guess we'll start in goal. I mean, personally, I was very impressed with what I saw from Aiden. He looked really good. It's tough. I mean, yeah, if you let up 5 goals when you're facing 16 shots, and like 8 of them are good quality chances. If you get your hands on 3 of them, you've done a good job.
Yeah.
The defense has let you down. So I was kind of taken by surprise that that we saw we saw AJ go, but I think it helped him. And I know he's ready or I think anyway, from what I've seen of him, I think he's ready. So then the question becomes: Mira signs for 2 years. What's Aiden going to do?
Yeah, I think I mean that's good. A good thing that he's only 16 years old. He turned 17 in January. And you know what? He got his first full season of pro experience, and I don't think he was out of place for the most part. Obviously, you brought up the defense. It was kind of like a struggle for most of the season for them on the back line for whatever it was. Like a lot of guys took step backs. They had a couple new guys step in. The chemistry wasn't all there. They had Juan Mina start the year, and an academy guy took over Copeland Berkeley. He took over the right back spot for almost the whole season, and that was also his first full season. A lot of inexperience on that back line kind of derailed them for most part of the season. But I think when Stokes is making 53 saves throughout the whole season as a 16-year-old, like I think we have to for a goalkeeper being that young is crazy, and he's one of the biggest prospects in the U.S.'s national team setup. He's also getting looks with Wales and England. I think he's got a couple more years of grinding away at MLS Next Pro, just getting those games under his belt, and we could see him maybe be like a Gaga Slonina, where he's starting in MLS as an 18-year-old.
I wouldn't be surprised. We mentioned the defense. I know we mentioned Omar Valencia. I mean, he's another kid that I like watching him. I like what he does with the ball, and I like what he does off the ball. He has that sense. The rest of the events, I mean, and I've known Curtis Ofori since he first came up 3 years ago. I know the injury really hurt him this year, coming off last year. It just never seemed like he really caught his stride either. So I don't know where that's going to leave him as far as the his status is going to be. It was tough. I know we mentioned a couple other guys that are definitely going to get a shot this year. It's one of those questions like who's going, we're going to keep Duncan, I'm assuming, when he comes back from injury, but I don't think there's a lot of people that are going to raise their hand and say they want to see Duncan stay. And we definitely don't want Duncan starting. So I don't know. I mean, I like Nicholas said, I don't know that maybe he comes in and starts, but I see him off the bench as a possibility. And again, when Nicholas mentioned the Miguel, my buddy, the one thing that I looked at for the schedule, we have got so many games in May. And there are going to be other points in time during the season where the congestion is just going to be like somewhat overwhelming. And again, Gary mentioned it. We don't know if we're going to be in Open Cup or not. So that just adds to the schedule congestion. And that there's going to be turnover. You're going to want the younger guys to get their time, especially at Open Cup. So I think he's another one of those players we're going to have to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I think, for like about 2 years now, we've been calling for, a backup left back on this roster. And, we see obviously JMI, holds it down, but, playing 30 plus games and playoffs every year, I mean, that takes a toll on the body, whenever you're playing 90 minutes every single week and, he can't get a break. Now bringing in a guy like Valencia, it just brings depth to his roster that they haven't had. Even if Kyle Duncan stays, that's just depth at right back because, Dylan Nealis is still there. You can give him a break with Kyle Duncan not playing, 30 games this year. So I think, Valencia showed that I think he was ready to come up to the first team at portions of last season and, spell JMI once in a while. I think he shows that he's got pace. He's got the willingness to cross the ball into the box. And he's already a senior international for Panama. I think at the international level, he's shown that he's a capable left back. And for a guy that's only 20, I think he's got sky's the limit for him at left back going forward.
Definitely. All right. I know that we have got quite a bunch of characters, let's say, at midfield on Red Bull 2. We have seen so many different guys playing at different points in the midfield. Um, Obviously, I mean, we had seen Steven Sawada play.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where he's going to end up. Ibrahim Kasuli played well at the beginning of the season, and then I don't know what happened. That just sort of once we hit like July, it seemed like just like the first team, he seemed to disappear. We really just didn't see a lot of him. And then the question becomes after that. We know about Rossborough getting signed as a homegrown. He was impressive this year. I enjoyed watching him, and again, some of these guys, I cannot believe I look at these kids. They're as old as my kids.
Yeah.
All right, these are 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds, and they're playing like head and shoulders above where I would think they'd be at that age. But he was definitely one of the standouts, and I'm glad he got the homegrown contract because I think he's going to fight for minutes.
Yeah, and I think we kind of talked a bit about this pre-show. Red Bull 2's been a great developer for these young players. Ibrahim Kasule, Bradley Wright Phillips, and the rest of the staff down there at Red Bull 2. They've been doing a great job developing guys like Tanner Rossborough, Julian Hall, Rold Mitchell before he got hurt. Adri Mehmeti, we in the midfield. Like all these young guys are getting these valuable minutes at such a young age, and obviously they're still 16-year-olds, like you said. So they obviously had their struggles here and there. But Rossborough, at a certain point in the season was scoring a goal like every single game. And I think he showed great strides in his game as a target forward and finishing in the box. Julian Hall had some great moments as well. I think this team going forward in the attack could be boasting something really good with Roland Mitchell coming back from that torn ACL, the 16-year-olds. Mohamed Sofo as well as got a first team deal at the end of last year. I think people forget about him. I think this team has developed a lot of good attacking prospects going forward. So we'll see what they do next year. But I could see Rold Mitchell and Rossborough running the show next year up top.
I was gonna, it's you mentioned the coaching staff down at Red Bull 2. When they got rid of, I don't even remember what the British gentleman that was here for a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
When he was dismissed last season, mid-season, and you saw the BWP started to make his presence known. You could tell on the field that there was a difference in the way the team was playing, and that's carried over all of this year. And I just think Wallenick did a great job for the beginning of when Red Bull 2 started and carrying up and through. I felt he needed to move on. But I loved seeing what he did with the younger players. I watched games where even after the game, we could have won 4-1. He was still out on the field after the game talking to guys. BWP's the same way. He gets a hold of these kids. It's like, all right, yeah, the game's over, but your lesson's not done. And it's they try to instill that idea that like you're playing at this level to learn, not to win. And that's what, as we were discussing earlier, as fans, casual fans are going to go, oh, but they lost. Yeah, but that's not where they're playing this game. They're here to develop. It's a developmental league. Trophy doesn't mean anything if your players aren't moving on. And we're seeing that with our guys. So that's where I think a lot of people get the wrong idea of where Red Bull 2 is at right now.
Yeah, and I think winning does help in these certain situations, but it's not the end all be all. And when you talk about when Ibra and Brad stepped in to the coaching staff, I think those are two well-known Red Bull guys in their time with the club, and I think they get that respect, especially for the African guys when they come in under Ibra. I mean, the Ugandan guys love Ibra. They call him. They're basically he's acting like their father for them all the way from home. So I think it's kind of like a family over there at Red Bull 2. Obviously, this year wasn't the best with results, but I think every player played their what off for Ibra. They wanted to win games, and most of them I would say improved in certain areas of their game, and that's the big point of Red Bull 2 going forward since they made that move from USL to MLS Next Pro is just to develop guys. So you've seen Valencia get that first team contract. You saw Mohamed Sofo get that first team contract. Rossborough getting a homegrown. All these guys are developing under under Ibra, and I think that's what you have to look for at the end of the day. How many players are Red Bull 2 sending to the first team, and that's the ultimate goal of a second team around the world.
I just want to ask one question before we bring Anthony Merced in. We all remembered, of course, the heralded 2016 team, the one that won the USL Cup in the very first try, and there were some guys, of course, that are now household names. Okay, not just with New York Red Bulls, of course, but MLS in particular. Of course, now that and we talked about this, right, where fans like the idea of their junior team playing in a real league, and the reason why even the USL didn't even want the two teams in Major League Soccer. They want them out. Okay, they didn't like the idea of basically using them as a development, and they wanted it. There's a bit of a rivalry between MLS and of course USL. We won't even go into that, but that's probably the reason why they moved them on. But now the Red Bulls are focusing pretty much on development to the dismay of some of the fans. I mean, they go there and they see kids and they hustle, they do what they got me, and they lose. Okay, they're playing against a bunch of teenagers. Whereas some of them in their mind, they're thinking, well, we should be dominating MLS Next Pro. Do you feel that way sometimes?
I think I made this conscious comment to myself when they made that move to Next Pro. Is like, wins don't really matter anymore. If I see a guy have a great game, I think that's a positive out of it. Obviously, losing sucks, and losing a lot of games could create negative notions in a locker room, and maybe that could stick with them. But I think when you're in a development league like a Premier League 2, basically, you got to develop as many players as possible and send them to the first team. That's the ultimate goal for Red Bull. Taking guys from the academy, bringing them up to Red Bull 2. Going scouting in Africa and South America, Central America, bringing those guys in. Yep, which they have done great. A lot of these African kids coming through now are doing really well.
Brought back some pearls, man.
Yep, the Panamanian pipeline so far with Omar Valencia,
still alive and well.
Rafael Mosquera, and they could be looking at another guy from that team as well to come in this year. So I think they're making really good relationships with these academies that Red Bull has eyes on across the world. And at the end of the day, if they can develop 2 to 3 guys per season that they're sending to the first team, I think that's the best thing we can hope for. And they'll go out and they'll play 100%. They'll try to win games, and we saw it the first year in MLS Next Pro. They were a really good team. Unfortunately, last year they had certain injuries, a new back line, basically. So if they can get a couple more veterans to go with these young guys, I think they could have another good year like they did 2 years ago if Rold Mitchell is healthy again and Tanner Rossborough is scoring like he did last year. I think we could see another playoff run with Red Bull 2 next year.
Yeah. All right, Anthony, we're bringing you in. Of course, we talked about we definitely talked about the signings that came in earlier, and we wanted to have your take on them. And based on what you and I talked about, the Red Bulls are not quite done in that area. So, Anthony, we're going to wait for Lonray whenever he decides to join us again. But until he does, I'll take his stead. Now, these are some of the signings that we talked about. Some of the people have been bragging and boasting about, they saw him first with Ticked You Off, which is never a very smart idea. So so at this point, I'm going to leave Lonray. I'm going to step away. Lonray, this is where you come in, the signings that we talked about, and this is where the download comes in. Gentlemen, all yours.
Perfect. Hey, Anthony, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. How are you, Lonray?
I'm really good. Had a really great afternoon. Saw the Devils whoop up.
Are we doing this again? Are we doing this again?
Of course we are. It's Jersey, baby. What you mean?
You're lucky my red wine comes really close to catching that. Look, I'm going to say this. I am a diehard Rangers fan, but I will say this. The New Jersey Devils are an incredibly fun team to watch. So, I like good hockey above – I like good sports above my favorite team. I love watching really, really good teams. The Devils are a really, really ridiculously fun team to watch right now.
That's true. That's true. Speaking of fun teams to watch, so like give me your thoughts on the playoff run we just had, man. I know it was on your podcast like in between the first two rounds, and now all of a sudden we made the final. Unfortunately, we didn't bring the cup home. But I mean, I don't know about you, but for me personally, the only franchise I do not mind losing MLS Cup to is indeed the Los Angeles Galaxy. So I mean that's why I wasn't like mad like at the Galaxy, even though the city of Los Angeles seems to own New York or New Jersey when it comes to championship games or championship rounds. In the past decade.
It's so weird, right? Because I remember what was it? 2014 was the Kings and Rangers.
2012 was the Kings and Devils.
Kings and Devils. Yep. Yeah. So it seems like it always ends up being that we recently had the Yankees Dodgers, although historically the Yankees have owned the Dodgers a lot more than that. But recency is all that, and now we got another version of that with the Galaxy and the New York Rangers. Look, you were on my pod, and I remember it was right before the Hudson River Derby playoff edition.
It was.
And the one thing you said was they have to win that game. Like you didn't know what you were going to be able to do with yourself if they didn't win it. Well, they didn't just win it. They created the game plan that would take them to MLS Cup.
To the final, yeah. I couldn't even believe it. Like that, like after Columbus, I bawled in the stands. My girl was right next to me. Like my friends were comforting me. I like bawled in the stands. I couldn't believe we even made the second round. After beating City in round 2, I was just completely in shock. Like my girl was standing right next to me. Like couldn't even believe what happened. And then winning the conference final. Oh my god, that was just incredible. That was complete like euphoria. Again, unfortunately, the first 15 minutes completely we were completely undone the first like 15-20 minutes in the final. We did get to go back in the first half hour, but I mean like that was all she wrote. Forsberg's chance being missed, notwithstanding.
And that was the big one.
That was a huge one. I couldn't. The one thing is, believe that.
If there was a moment, right, and you wanted the ball to fall to somebody's foot, you wanted to fall to the guy that essentially was brought in to lead this team, and it did. Didn't work out that way. I know. I believe Gary shared some of the post game from the locker room afterwards. I absolutely loved his post game interview. Not the one I was not there for the one that was in front at the conference desk in front of the media. I was there to talk to him in the locker room. And, this guy's been through it before. He was there in the Bundesliga for the loss to Bayern Munich and to Borussia Dortmund in the German Cup, and then there when they won there too. So he's seen the bad and he's seen the good. So he was able to share a very unique perspective of like, oh, we played well, blah blah blah, but this still feels like shit right now. It's exactly what he said.
Yeah.
And he's right. It does feel bad, but at the same time, there was something very Bundesliga about how this team played, right? We live here in the Northeast. We're obsessed with English football and Italian football more than anything else.
Spanish a little bit too.
And what's the one thing that you love above all else about those leagues? The best teams have possession.
Yeah.
Well, Bundesliga teams sometimes don't operate that way. And the New York Red Bulls were perfectly fine having 20, 30% possession in their games and being able to pick their moments. I don't think there was a single playoff game where they led in any of the statistics that most MLS people love the most, but they still made it there. And I think I love that because it's a show that there is no one way to play this game. There are many ways. And this is one way that, would I say that ride this next year exactly the way they did it for 34 games? No. But it does come up big in cup moments.
Yeah. I'm speaking of, Bundesliga. What do you think of these big signings we've made, particularly Hack and Choupo-Moting, and our other rumored signings, Marcelo Morales from Chile and Victor Bogac the young Polish kid from their second division out there. How do you think these players, especially Chupo and Hawk, will impact our club and in our attempt to retain our Eastern Conference crown at the very least?
Yeah, so Hawk defensively reminds me a lot of Sean Nealis, and I think they're going to complement each other very well. I think the one thing that he does that Nealis doesn't do is he's a little more effective on the attack. What you were getting from Andres Reyes was this come the ball madness that sometimes doesn't work without the free flowing creativity of a lot of other players around them. And let's face it, the New York Red Bulls are not a South American style team that you rely on these guys to, create so much as work within a system. And I think Hawk will be one of those guys to work there. The fitness is going to be an issue. Is he going to be able to get enough time off to be able to go the grind of MLS, which is very different from the grind in Saudi Arabia, second division or wherever the hell he came from, and and Europe. It is very different. Now, Choupo-Moting is very interesting because the age does concern me, but he is, and I think Gary said it. He's a baller. He's never been the baller. He's always been, his best season with Bayern Munich was 2 seasons ago when Sadio Mane, who was picked to be the heir apparent to Lewandowski when he left. For those that don't know, when Lewandowski left to Barcelona, they went and pilfered Sadio Mane from Liverpool. It was an abject failure. Choupo-Moting scored double-digit goals and was able to really carry that before they then went to Harry Kane. I don't think either there or in PSG right before that, he was ever brought in to be the guy. He was brought in to facilitate. Yeah. He is going to be the guy here. And the question is he ready to do that? Is he ready to absorb that spotlight? I hope he is, because he's got the talent to totally make that happen.
He does. And I think he's got the charisma as well. I think he's going to fit in really well in New York. I think he's going to fit in really well, under Sandro's game plan. I think he and Forsberg are going to have, some really nice link-up chemistry together. I can't wait to see how that works out on the pitch. How about Marcelo Morales and Victor Bogac? I know those signings are not 100% confirmed by the club, but what have you heard recently on the rumblings on those guys?
Yeah, so look, I don't know if anybody saw, but the league released the amount of GAM and TAM that all teams have available to them, which showed me that before that I was really wondering, man, you signed technically a 4th DP and you have to buy down one of your other 3 DPs to make this work, while looking at one of these other guys to fill a U22 spot, and then you're going to need another TAM player. And when I saw the large amount that they have, and I can't believe I forgot about this, but the forever international slot that the New York Red Bulls traded for, I think it was in 2006 or 7 from the Houston Dynamo, that this league is you will never ever, no one will ever be allowed to do that again.
7? That's crazy.
It is a long time ago, and so I think they forever own one of Houston Dynamo. I don't even remember who they traded for it. I think Mark Fishkin online on Twitter or Blue Sky detailed the trade. So if you go through his timeline, he might have the exact specifics. But yeah, this is something the league will never let happen again.
No, definitely not. We had that stat for almost 20 years.
Yeah, they can sign both of those guys with the knowledge of it's not a make or break signing. Both of these guys are going to be younger. This is going to be kind of or at least with the Polish guy, is going to be a bit like a Klimala and Van Zier type signing. Let's see if you adjust. Same way with Morales. He's going to need, if that signing happens, I expect him to start with Red Bull 2 for at least a few games. And if he doesn't do well, probably stay there. That's what happened with Juan Jose Mina. And we saw that with Matthias Jorgensen, who was a $1 million signing, whatever it was,
2 million.
2019 or something like that. But look, this team is deep right now, and it's okay for them to do that and give this a shot. So I expect both of those guys to come through if those guys want to be here.
Yeah.
I see a lot of people are asking about Van Zier.
Yeah, I wonder will Van Zier still stay?
Yeah, Gary, you're muted.
Fan. Van Zier is sticking around there. No, they're not looking to move him just yet. Remember how much money they took him to get him? Okay, $5 million is, I hate to say this, is a huge chunk of change. So they're not quite giving up on him yet. Okay.
Well, I've heard they gotta buy someone down. Are they gonna buy down Carballo?
Well, they're going to need the money to keep one of these guys. That's the only thing. I like Carballo. It depends on whether or not he's going to stick around or anything else like that. He wants to stick around, from what Anthony and I heard from the club. They're trying to make that happen. Otherwise, remember, he's on loan. Back to South America he goes, which is kind of a shame because he did put himself an impact during the playoffs, and he certainly cemented. Basically, you know what they say when you play for a job. He did pretty well in that position, so I can't see why not. But at the end of the day, it's what the market wants, and it's what the market happens. And there's a long way to go between now and February, of course, when the season starts up all over again. And there's a lot of moves to be made. They got some money. They signed him on as a DP, and we'll see what happens. Honestly, this is one of the reasons why I feel that the DP needs to disappear and let the clubs sign whatever they want. Otherwise, going through all this financial gymnastics, they'll make things supposed to easy. And I believe, Anthony, the league kind of did that starting not this season, but the season after when they made this ballyhooed announcement that they were going to give teams more financial room to make signings, and such like that, which is probably the reason why, the Red Bulls are not standing pat. But I got to ask you, when was the last time they did anything like this? They didn't wait. I mean, we were just talking over, what happened with Rays. And then next thing you know, boom, 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 boom. All these things came out of nowhere. What are your thought on that?
Yeah, we need to put a little bit of perspective on how the front office has been in flux so much since the I don't want to call it firing, but the departure of Ali Curtis. Because ever since he left, Dennis Hamlet, who was the assistant coach of Jesse Marsh at the time, became the sporting director or head of sport, whatever you want to call it. At that point, no, it was sporting director. Yeah, things didn't quite work out. They came up with that head of sport spot, and they gave it to Kevin Thelwell. Remember that guy?
Yeah.
That guy who's now like, woohoo! The Freakins are going to give me a lot of money to try to revive Everton. It's true. Like, he's a sporting director of Everton. Like,
it's true.
So, and then he goes, and there's a period of time where there's just no one for a while, and Schneider comes in, kind of in the middle of Struber's reign, and he's just like, what the hell is this league? Trying to figure it out. But he's a head of sport that doesn't have a sporting director because Hamlet has been on his way out for about a year and a half. He goes without one, and now we finally have. And so that's going like almost 6 years with there being turmoil in that front office in some way, shape, or form. Now they've got Julian de Guzman in. He's got his time. This is proof that they were actually doing work, because they knew what they were going to do the minute this season was over, and they pulled the trigger as soon as they were done. Now, there's one other thing I want to mention, Gary, because you mentioned Carballo, and so this is I don't know the answer to this question, but it's a really important one for MLS. If you buy down Carballo, let's say he's injured and hopefully not for the rest of that year, and you're like, I don't want to continue the loan, and he leaves in June. I do not know if that GAM or TAM money comes back to the team to be used at the moment in July,
good point.
Or if it doesn't and you're stuck without it, that's, I think, going to be the decision of who it is you buy down. Because if you can't get that money back and things don't go well with Carballo, I say do that because it's kind of like money you're going to get back in July. But if you
Right.
don't get it back, then you buy down Van Zier to make sure he's the one that becomes a TAM player.
I've heard that Van Zier can't be bought down probably because of his transfer fee. I've heard rumblings of that. I don't know who or when. I mean, like that's up to the club.
This is the confusing thing about MLS. Does Dan know the answer to this? Was he paying attention?
Yeah, I know he was saying because he shot us a note saying Cabral wants to go back to Uruguay. I mean, that's what I've heard.
Yeah, that's a rumor out there.
He
wants to go back to his hometown club, right?
Nacional, yeah.
Yeah, so that's it. But he agreed with me about getting rid of the DP. I'm getting sick of it. It's
yeah.
The league is now 30 years old. I mean, at some point, you want to trust the franchises a little, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you got the commissioner yelling and screaming about, oh yeah, we're one of the best leagues out in the world for one team. Okay.
Well, here's the scary thing about that.
Here's the roster rules.
Adam at MLS Cup during his presentation, he made a comment that a lot of people railed on him on, which is a lot of leagues are calling them and asking, are calling him and saying like, "Oh, you're doing such a good job. What are you doing?" And I think that a lot of people from the outside look at these European leagues and say, "Oh, wow, they're doing things so great." They're bringing in large amounts of gross revenue, but they don't. But if you look at the net number, a lot of these teams are drowning. Even like your favorite teams around the world are. Look at Barcelona's situation right now. They are a bankrupt team. Real Madrid is trying to do the Super League because they don't see a way forward to continue spending the way that they are. Man United situation. A lot of these teams are they're looking at these leagues going, how do we control spending? And they're looking at MLS going like, wow, you've been able to create this way to do it. Now it's come at an expense of other things.
Right.
But this is something that the European League, so fans go like, ha ha ha, Don Garber. And I go, no, seriously, they probably actually are asking him for advice. Because look at Italy. Italy is a dying league right now. And I know a lot of people don't want to hear that. They have infrastructure problems. They have roster problems. It is a mess right now.
There were a few years from, if I remember, we kind of talked about this back in the day. They had an epic scandal. One of their top teams was caught point shaving. Okay,
Juve.
Juve. I mean, Juve. That's like the Yankees. Okay. Getting caught point shaving, okay,
and they got caught doing something else again. I think it was the referee scandal.
Yeah,
and they got a point deduction again. So
I mean that's the
nasty club. Nasty. Italy at least punishes their big clubs.
I mean, when you get clubs that get caught like that, where you either have to spend just to catch up in the big boys, and it's not their domestic league that's the reason why they're spending. They're spending so they can get into the Champions League, so you can get some of that money back. Okay.
Yeah.
So UEFA is in the game. Okay. They're just sitting there with their fingers crossed, and they're trying to to fight off the Huns at the gates right now because they know the Super League ain't going away. Okay, they're knocking on the door and they're talking to some of the big leagues and everything else, and it's going to come to a point where they're just going to say, you know what, the heck with UEFA, I'm going to sign with the Super League so I can get some more moolah, and then UEFA's got a problem. Okay, all the other domestic leagues, they got a problem. So for all the things that guys like me, Anthony, Daniel, and all the other local scribes, right? We tend to prick on Don Garber about. This is the one thing he's got he's got this right. Because if you remember, I mean, I don't know if you're too young to remember, Lon Ray. Remember the NASL, the original NASL?
I am way too young to remember that, bro.
It was the Cosmos and everybody else, okay? How they basically ran the operation. So in a way, it's like it's like constructing a building on sand. And after a while, it'll just collapse on its own weight. And that's exactly what happened. Now, of course, Anthony, you and I discussed, we had debates about this. And a lot of people don't realize, we actually had debates about this. It was like, it was the NASL. No, it was baseball and football that flexed their muscle. Baseball and football really didn't do very much except spectate and watch the building collapse, okay?
Yeah.
Because what the model with NASL was doing wasn't sustainable, okay? You had one super team. That's why whenever I hear the words, right, Daniel, super team, I go, oh, here we go again. Have you not learned from what happened in the NASL? I give the owner, I forgot his name already. I forgot the owner of Inter Miami credit. Okay,
Jorge
he
Mas.
wants to Jorge Mas. He wants to put MLS in prime time. Okay,
Yep.
that's what he wants to do. He wants to make a summer blockbuster of summer blockbusters. That's the reason why he, and he and Beckham got Messi in the first place. Think back, okay, when they played here at Red Bull Arena, how much of it was a circus it was, okay?
Yep.
Tickets were being cost in the stratosphere just for one guy. I haven't seen anything like that since Pele, right? I mean, since those days. And along the way, I kept saying to myself, okay, I understand you want to bring soccer into the limelight for the rest of the masses. Forget the diehards. Forget guys like you, Lon Ray. Forget guys like Mark. Forget guys like Carlos. Okay? Forget those guys. You don't count. What they want is the dudes that never watched soccer in their lives to go, oh, I'll take in the footy game. I got a next door neighbor who won't even think about Major League Soccer unless, and I repeat, unless those players make NFL salaries. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't like that. I just don't.
I don't care what money players make. Like,
Neither
I
do
don't. It doesn't matter to me. All that matters to me is that, I mean, it matters in the sense of, like, I'm a journalist, so I care about it. But, like, when I was a Yankee, I'm a Yankee fan, but, like, it's not necessarily about the salary. Only matters to me if it's a detriment to the team.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
Like I don't watch a team because they make a lot of money. I only care about like my wife is a Mets fan and she's like,
let's go.
I don't like this contract because like it's taking us too long to sign Pete Alonso. And I'm just like, yeah, you're right, because he wants $200 million as well. and then the Yankees go out and they buy up essentially a brand new team with the money that they would have just given to Soto by himself. And I'm like, I'd rather be in this boat than that Queens boat.
That boat, yeah. I mean,
You're a liar.
I mean,
I'm totally telling the truth.
Oh, I'm telling the truth there. So it's.
I actually had a question for you guys. Obviously, you brought up baseball and their salary structure. Do you think we could get it to a point where they get rid of the DP, but they give a soft salary cap? So, like, obviously, they have the cap and whatever number you would want that high end to be. And if you go over, you can go over that all you want, but you just got to pay the tax. Would you think that would be a thing that MLS looks at going forward?
Lonray, Mark, Carlos, I'm gonna let you guys answer first before I put in my 2 cents.
Okay. I think potentially. I think going to a soft salary cap is something that I think we could maybe do in the next 5 to 10 years. I do think the MLS needs to start kind of like just letting go of the training wheels a little bit, kind of trying to like let teams stand on their own 2 feet a little bit. We're going into year 30 of this league, and a lot of and I feel like a lot of the roster rules and like the league rules are kind of too archaic. I don't know how I feel about us still being a single entity league, but I mean, I guess maybe it makes sense, for the stage of development the league is in. But I think they're a little too afraid to grow. They're too afraid to make a mistake. And in that being afraid to make a mistake, they're a little too, they're holding back their own growth. And I think they need to lift some of the roster rules, allow more players per team so we can compete more in the CONCACAF Champions League outside of 1 to 2 teams a season. CONCACAF Champions Cup, excuse me. Maybe we could see our teams in the Club World Cup. I want to see the Red Bulls in the Club World Cup, and that's not going to happen with us having 25 players a squad.
No.
That's nothing at all.
No, I think the problem you run into, I know that Anthony mentioned the Yankees, and having lived 2 blocks away from the stadium and being a lifelong fan, I loved when they signed Reggie in the '70s. All right, they brought in Catfish Hunter. You saw these big names come to the Yankees, and that was sort of like we've had the discussion on and off. Why are teams going to LA? Why are they not coming here? We could offer any number of guys, a ton of money. We obviously we've got plenty of cash. When you sign a DP, there's no limit on how much you're spending, but they're not coming here because we weren't winning, and that has changed. We made it. We got our second trophy. Gary and I will continue to push the fact that the Western Conference trophy needs to be on display. But now we have an Eastern Conference trophy. So there's two trophies that need to be on display. But the question now becomes, does the league as a whole survive if they just take off the training wheels?
But Mark, I think your brain would explode if you had to deal with that LAFC team and get one trophy in the entirety of their existence. So like they since 2019 and now, the amount of money that they've spent, what have they gotten? They got one MLS Cup.
Worth it.
It's worth it to Red Bull fans because you've had nothing for 30 years. But if you look at
the Inter Miami fans, though, they had Messi and they were eliminated by the number 9 seed.
So I never asked Miami fans anything because Miami fans don't ever show up for anything other than college football games.
Well, I think that sort of feeds into the whole idea of, Garber keeps expanding this league out. Like at what point in time do we stop with the expansion? How many teams are we going to have in MLS?
But hold on. So first off, Florida should not have any professional sports teams because they don't care about any of the pro teams. They don't care about the Marlins. Who brought them 2 World Series. They're literally throwing the Rays out the door. Don't even get me started with the Florida Panthers and maybe the Tampa Bay Lightning are the most liked around there. And God bless the 90s Orlando Magic, but they still don't care about them.
They don't.
And Jacksonville has done nothing.
Yeah, so it's just.
But they were almost Georgia anyway.
That's Florida anyway.
And Georgia does love their pro team.
Yes, but that's the whole idea, though. Like I said, you look at how the league has developed. We just keep rolling like San Diego. We're not going to get into the discussion of how they ended up getting a franchise because that'll start Lon Ray even in more than we've already started him tonight. But the whole idea is we've continued to expand, and we have these archaic rules. We joked around about, Ali Curtis had like a 3-inch thick binder for all of the rules that go into signing players in MLS.
He got it done, though.
No, he got it done, but dear God,
he did get it done.
Like,
it done, though.
But dear God, how do you stay competitive? How do you keep bringing people? Because we know as fans, and I know Mark Fishkin has his list of all the reasons why people don't come to Red Bull Arena. All right, and it continues to grow every season. All right, they just
actually people did come to Red Bull Arena this year.
Yeah, well, but that was the amazing part is. All right, and I gotta say this before we get towards the end of the show. I know Miguel mentioned it in our little group chat. He said he's getting his season tickets back. I want proof. I want proof that he's bought them. Carlos, you do not have your yellow jersey on.
I do not, but I'm getting it. It's on sale for $50. So
dude,
I gotta do it.
They had a ton of them at the clearance sale, and I did not buy one because it still does not have a star.
Get ready for desert camo.
No, that's horrible. We thought the yellow kits were bad. These are going to be worse. I didn't even think that was possible, but I just have this feeling it's going to be worse.
All right, Carlos, you have the last word. You have the last word in this question, and then we'll prepare wrap this up.
I'd like to think so, right? But it's been 30 years and it hasn't happened yet, right? Yeah. So what sort of makes you think that it's suddenly going to happen now, especially if, again, if Garber's head is being blown up by others asking, hey, how are you all doing? Like, how are you guys being so successful in MLS, right? So what motivation does he have to say, yeah, let's do something different, right? I think practically, again, and you all who are here probably know better than I would, but I would venture to think that the owners probably wouldn't have a huge problem with it. I mean, again, I think it's relative to what owner you may be talking to. The players aren't necessarily gonna budge too much at it. They're just potentially gonna be more particular about where they may want to go or where they may end up. But coming full circle again, it's been 30 years plus. I don't. I'd like to think that they'll make some kind of a transition at some point, but I don't see the motivation why they would at this particular point.
Yeah, that would pretty much would pretty much mess up a good thing while they have it right now. Um, how I look at it is something like this. You got something, you know, there was a time earlier, in the early part of the league, where people would literally count down how many, you know, how many years they had left with Major League Soccer. There was a time where players used to change in their cars,
Yeah.
in the parking lot. How should I know? I saw it myself over the Giant Stadium days. Okay, football teams like, okay, we'll let you play in the field and do whatever you want as long as we get the money. But no, you're not practicing on our field. You're not doing anything. They were basically treated, you know, like fourth, fifth class citizens. Now, almost every team has got their own training center. Some are basically redoing their training centers, like the Red Bulls. They got theirs, and now they're building super size, where it basically is a massive campus
Yep.
when it's all said and done. The league has grown to a point where the infrastructure is there. So if you're gonna upset one thing other than giving the zealots, you know what I'm talking about, pro rel, those guys, okay, giving them exactly what they want. We want pro rel. Okay, fine. First things first. Let's stabilize the first division first
Mhm.
before we get there. Okay, and don't talk to me, unless you guys have a stable second division. We already have that. Do you? Some of your USL teams are playing on track fields. That's what you call stable? Okay. When every one of those teams have a stadium just like Louisville City does, then come talk to me. Okay? At a minimum, you know, something like at a minimum, something like over Rhode Island FC has. Okay? They're opening up their nice little pleasure palace next season. So unless all those teams have their own fields, then we can talk about pro rel. Because at least there you have an infrastructure. You don't have an infrastructure here. So let's calm down with that talk. The only thing that I want the league to do, actually two, give the teams that's been there that's been there for a while, give them a little trust, okay? Take off the belt just a little bit. Let them
Mm.
do what they need to do. Let them make their own deals. And I mean everything within the stadium, their own sponsorships, what have you. Okay, sure. Let them kick into the league every year without any problems. And if they spend too much, there's a penalty. Okay,
Mhm.
slap them on the wrist. Back. Okay, you know that 30K that you thought you was gonna put in your pocket? Nah, that's gonna go over to Columbus and everybody else. Okay, that will keep the league honest. Okay, but there has to be, the English Premier League, if I'm not mistaken, Anthony, they got a hardcore line. Okay, you can bring all the superstars you want, still got to bring the English kids up online. Sorry,
Mhm.
that's
Yeah, they
non-negotiable.
have a
Yeah,
minimum
that's
number of English
non-negotiable.
players. Yeah.
Yeah, and you got to put them on the field, and they got to play. Sorry, that's
Yeah.
non-negotiable.
There's a minutes demand from the English FA.
Yeah, I mean, I like the United States Soccer Federation to be more like the FA. I like them to be the 10,000-pound gorilla. They're not. Okay? You got a league bullying them. So that's probably the reason why the things are not as great as they are like in other nations. But they can learn from them. But there's this silly little thing like American exceptionalism going around and saying, we're American, we can do what I want. Okay. It's working, but it's going to be a point where it's not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
I like to see this league around for another 30 years, 60 years, and so on. But they have to make some considerable changes first, and that's my 2 cents in. Before we go, there's a couple of people we definitely need to recognize, and that, of course, is the folks I affectionately refer to as the first team. They are the game thread team, of which Carlos Cano is part of them all season long. They have been nothing but spectacular. And the reason why I want to give them their due, yet again, I said this, of course, during the end of the U.S. Open, U.S. Open, MLS Cup, um, is because they've done a terrific job. Okay, and I want to mention some names, of course. Of course, the team lead, of course, is Helene Kraft Rudolph. She is the team leader. Of course, you have Carlos Cano sticking right behind them, and of course, you have Bradley Glick, and of course, Nicholas Lianos, who's also on the team. He also provides fantastic work with the player, with the player ratings and everything else. We'd like to thank him for doing that. And of course, all these guys have been fantastic all these years. I want to give them their due, and they'll be right back at it in February when it's all said and done. So, as are we. Our next episode will take place 1 week before the 2nd of February, which is our first game of 2025, which means that me, Daniel, Anthony, Lanre, Mark, the fun begins again. So we're gonna rest our heels, cool off our heels. We're gonna chill for about a couple of weeks. That's it. Or like maybe
Yeah.
4 or 5 weeks. That's it. That's the one thing about deep runs like the Red Bulls did. We got very short, very short off seasons. So we'll be back at work before we know it's 1 week before February 2nd, where the Red Bulls take on Cincinnati on the road. Ouch! Don't know about you, but Northern Ohio was kind of cold out there during that time. Hope they got things warm. I was thinking about going to FC Cincinnati. It looks like the only way there's if Anthony basically threatens me to go, go out there. So
I would never send you to Ohio unless I disliked you.
But the one thing we want to take the time out here is that this podcast started on a promise. Now, 132 episodes later, I have to say goodbye to someone who's been my left hand and my right. Carlos Cano, who's been here since the very beginning, has decided to step down as a member of the gentlemen. Of course, family first, as we say around here. Of course, ever since he had his second child, the demands have become great. Where unfortunately he cannot appear on a daily basis or weekly basis, but he will be behind the scenes. He is the executive producer. After all, if he was here in the beginning, he'll be keeping an eye on me. He'll be slapping me upside the head just in case I do something stupid, as always. But it's not only been a pleasure; it has been an absolute honor, my friend. You've been the greatest. I mean, I can't say this enough. In the beginning, I picked the perfect partner, and you know, I thank you doesn't even come close, my man. You've been spectacular, and the show owes you, the group owes you, everybody. On behalf of everyone, man. Thank you so much, man. I mean, please don't be a stranger. Your final words, good sir.
I appreciate y'all. I feel like I'm listening to a eulogy. I'm not
It's
dying,
not.
guys. I'm still gonna be around. No, but I mean, in all seriousness, like I do this for fun. I love everyone knows I love the game. I don't pretend to take it too seriously or not. I feel like I'm somewhere in between, right? But it's just, it's always been a lot of fun. I love this club, but yeah, between work and a 1-year-old, and I've in the last couple of weeks, I've had to tell Gary more times than not, like, Like I can't come on. I can't come on, you know? Which is part of it. Like if I'm gonna keep doing that, then again, that's like I need to not do this, right? Like I can't do this, especially if someone else can come on or whatever the case may be. But I'll still be regularly listening in, you know, still doing game threads, all the fun stuff. I'm not going anywhere or anything like that. But you know, you just won't see me as regularly. That's all.
Yeah, you just have
I can
one less
still
thing.
drive. I'm still the only one out of everyone else that knows how to
He beat me
man the
to it.
controls.
He beat me to it,
So,
man.
you know, if
That's it.
God
He's the
forbid
only,
something
you're the only
happens,
one who's gotten the keys, man.
I'm the only one with the spare keys to the pod. So I can
Yeah,
step in
that is
as
true.
needed. But I appreciate y'all. It's a
That's
ton of
because
fun.
Gary doesn't trust the rest of us with the car.
Well, if you guys would step up, maybe I would. So, so,
Yeah, you're asking
you
the
know,
wrong crew, man.
maybe you would. But no, the guys here have been nothing. I mean, I like to think that the guys that we've chosen to be among what is referred to as the gentlemen have been nothing but exemplary. I mean, they've been down. They've been down for the craft since day one, and I appreciate you all. Appreciate you, Lon Ray, Mark. Of course, we can't forget our second rant, or to the original rant man, of course, which is Miguel, and of course Nicholas. Where everybody can, you guys have been fantastic. And so we put the end of episode 132. That is the end of our fourth season. Our next season's our fifth anniversary one. 5 years. I mean, that's the one thing, Carlos. We didn't think it would actually make it to two, but here we are going in our fifth anniversary and we're still going on strong. And then many of that is to many of the people in the group. They've been spectacular with their support and everything else. So let us know how we did, how much we didn't do, how much we screwed up, and so on. Of course, rbdgthepodcast.com is the email address. Even after I sign off, we read all our emails, and there's been more than enough to come in and keep us straight. To all of our guests, Anthony, all season long, every month, you've been dropping the knowledge to everyone else. I thank you so much for that, man. Daniel, please don't be a stranger. The door is always open. We say that to all our guests. Hey, come on by and not just say hi, but come on by and drop some knowledge, of course, because we want people to know about the Red Bulls, because there's so much there's so much other podcasts out there that are not as dedicated as we are. We handle not just one team, but three. Not only that, we have the New Jersey, New York, Gotham FC, and of course we have New York Red Bulls too, which we do on a weekly basis. So we're going on strong for everything. And of course, to all of our listeners and to all of the people who've been signing on and everybody else, joining in the banter and the fun, thank you. You guys have been absolutely magnificent. We can't, we can't say this enough. So now all of a sudden he has changed his nickname. Now it's going to MLS Cup champions next season. Okay. Look, you do realize we got to the MLS Cup. We didn't win it, but we got there. So I guess maybe you need to change that name, change that from MLS Cup or bust, and just win the damn
That's
thing.
it.
Win it.
Win it.
And so
I
that's
do want
going
to
to
say
be
something.
the only thing that I'm going to be looking forward to this season, guys, is that we were the hunters in 2024, right? And a season that no one, and I repeat, no one expected. And lo and behold, we wind up in a place which a lot of folks didn't think we get. Unfortunately, we didn't get the cup that everyone says we couldn't get. Hopefully, that gives the organization a taste. All the excitement and everything else, and all the eyes were on the Red Bulls. People were talking about the Red Bulls. They were showing up on TV. They were showing up in the paper. Hopefully, the front office goes, okay, so this is what happens when you win. Yeah, fun things happens when you do. That's the one thing about this metropolitan area. We love winners. They ignore the losers. Okay? Even the Yankees. Yeah. We got an American League Championship, but not much else. But for a while, eyes was on the Yankees.
The Mets would
and the
beat the
Mets
Yankees in the World Series.
until they ran into the Dodgers and slapped them around a little bit, and then they slapped the Yankees around a little bit more. I'll never forget that 5-0 lead. That's going to be a very painful meme every time I look at it.
Nice.
Fifth inning, baby.
Yeah, but that's a painful meme, man. But anyway, here's to 2025 being the year where the streak comes to an end, and we can all celebrate and breathe easy before focusing on the next one. But this is something I tell to everyone, and I mean everyone. The first one is the hardest one. Okay, it's
Always.
the hardest one to get. It's the hardest one to accomplish. And yes, it's even frustrated when people get theirs, with relative ease. It's not so much as the journey, but it definitely is the journey, boys and girls. As for that, 2025 will come in about 1 month from now. Until then, from all of us here of the RBDG podcast, thank you very much for joining us for this last hour and a half. We will see you in 2025 in February. Until then, good night and see you next year.